Today, let's look at the Kiwi Ears Quintet. Kiwi Ears generously offered me a quintet for the purpose of this review, but of course I'll try not to let that influence me too much. And for everyone's sanity, I will mostly be comparing these directly with the Kiwi Ears Orchestra Lite, the KE4, and later on the SimGot Supermix 4. The 3D printed resin shells and nozzle of the Quintet is the thinnest of the bunch, featuring individually milled aluminium faceplates, 2 forward-facing vents, and a thin dust cover over the nozzle which splits into 3 tubes internally, which is always a good sign. The shell has a more extreme curvature compared to the others, but I found that its overall smaller size made it just about as comfortable, if not more so, than the KE4, and also not quite as snug as the Orchestra Lite. At 5.1 grams each, they're on the light end of the scale, which can contribute to longer wearing comfort. The overall design is more formal and understated, with faceplates that I would argue are also a more regular than irregular shape, which I think suggests a more serious kind of product. In case you were wondering where the Quintet gets its name from, inside the shells is an ensemble of 5 drivers per side. 1 diamond-like carbon dynamic driver for bass, 2 balanced armatures for mids, 1 planar for treble, and 1 piezoelectric bone conductor driver handling ultra treble. The Quintet comes with 2 sets of 3 sizes of silicon tips, 1 set of narrow bore tips with soft cores, and a set of 3 wide bore tips with harder cores. I found the wide bore tips with their hard cores more difficult to put onto the nozzles, but overall I thought they had the superior wearing comfort and musical performance. The cable is exactly the same as that paired with the KE4, so it's a touch thinner than I like, making it slightly prone to tangling along with its overly weighty Y-split hardware, although it is finished well and appears to be very well built. The Quintet also comes with the standard Kiwi Ears carry case. So as usual, the list of accessories and packaging makes for quite a Spartan experience. Let's see if Kiwi Ears keeps up the tradition of putting most of the cost and effort into the acoustic tuning and performance of the IEM. Let's start by talking about SimGot. In case you're not aware of the other IEM powerhouse that is SimGot, most will agree that they have quite a specific house sound that is catered more towards the average ear gain or pinner gain enjoyer, meaning their IEMs can and do have a stronger than neutral presence in the upper vocal range, which is especially jarring if your specific ear canal anatomy, like mine, is particularly averse to it. On my first listen, I was immediately assaulted by a significant and distasteful amount of pinner gain and excessive low treble, which I found even more striking than the average SimGot, which really took me by surprise considering the last Kiwi I reviewed was the KE4. So I thought to myself, here we go again, in part because I started out with the narrow bore tips. I went with these first because in my experience narrow bore tips don't have quite as good staging and can do weird things to the bass sometimes, so I decided to get them out of the way quickly. After switching to the wide bores, I noticed a slight improvement in airiness and staging, and also a bit of bass boost, but it wasn't a miracle cure either. It seems more often than not, IEMs, particularly those with a mix of various driver types, can suffer from limited versatility or flexibility, especially with regard to its imaging, staging, and its responsiveness to EQ. I'm always happy to have my expectations subverted for the better. So, despite having to apply quite a significant bit of tone correction, the improvements were immediate and responsive. Of course, my preferred sound won't be the same as yours, but after applying these simple corrections, the more subtle aspects like soundstage, imaging, and timbre all became fully apparent and appreciable. The good news is that the Quintet has excellent imaging and presents an accurate stereo image that also translates to above average accuracy in pinpointing sounds in 3D video games and greater than average sense of space, air, and spatial separation. The timbre, after tone correction, is extremely accurate, and I found that even the boost applied in the bass is taken by the Quintet completely in its stride without adding any obvious bloat or distortion. However, one area I do remain on the fence about is the mid-range presentation, which lacks percussiveness. You could take this as it being inferior to other IEMs with a more vivid mid-range presentation, or you could simply accept it as being closer to the presentation of average bookshelf speakers in a mid-sized room from a distance, which can be more relaxed and is just one of the many flavors that also lends itself to less ear fatigue. So overall, it's a bit of a mixed bag. On one hand, it has fabulous detail and texture, solid imaging, and a full spectrum response, which is very monitor-like in its performance and presentation. It even has a cherry on top with above average isolation, which is always welcome, especially in a vented IEM. And on the other hand, its tuning is kind of dated, taking one big step backward into the realm of thin and aggressive. Now for some quick comparisons, the Kiwi Ears Orchestra Lite sounds fuller, with an overall more competent and musical, perhaps euphoric performance, with a hint of slightly dulled upper treble, which was more than made up for with a more layered mid-range performance and superior separation. After listening to the Quintet, the Kiwi Ears KE4 felt like sinking deeply into a plush sofa with its thick, relaxing, enveloping sound. The Quintet clearly being more technically oriented and more spacious in its presentation, the KE4 is almost the antithesis of the Quintet and immediately easier to enjoy. And finally, the one I thought could possibly be the main competition, the SimGot SuperMix 4. Being about €70 cheaper than the Quintet, the SuperMix 4 has a better cable, apparently similar or perhaps better build quality, and with about equal design and ergonomics. The only thing it's apparently missing is one balanced armature driver. Comparing the two side by side, the very first impression is that the SuperMix 4 is the better tuned of the two, with a more impressive sub-bass performance. I would forgive you if that was your conclusion too, because you'd be wrong. Beside the Quintet, the SuperMix 4 sounds almost too strident in its treble presentation. Both of them are absolute giants of treble, with the Quintet being the more refined and slightly reined in of the two. Both are equally competent in the mid-range department, with the Quintet edging out into the lead, not just technically, but with a more spacious presentation. Finally, the bass is where Kiwi Ears continues to prove its dominance in the higher-end budget price range. Of course, in stock form things are almost backwards, at least for my ears, but after correction, even if you're a bit of a basshead and you want to go well over the top, for example, the bass tone and texture is still awesome, easily overtaking the KE4 in texture and slam, and rivaling the likes of the Rose Technics QT-X, another IEM that can take a bass pounding. Straight out of its little box, the Quintet sounds a bit poop. But don't let it fool you. Invest some time to tune it properly, and it will prove itself to be one of the more flexible, technical, and well above average performing IEMs in the market. The Quintet is not an easy recommendation. In fact, I'm not sure I can recommend it. Not everyone has the time or energy to tune their listening gear. However, most critically, for anyone with the patience or experience to invest just a little time into tuning this IEM, you will be rewarded with a sound that easily rivals and in some cases outclasses that of other flagship models out of the box. In such a case, the value for money proposition is extreme and cannot be ignored. I hate that I can't just stick these in my ears and enjoy them, but I also adore how they sound after putting in the work, after which they get very close to being a true reference monitor. At this price point, they are to me synchronously one of the best and worst IEMs around. Take it easy, and I'll see you in the next one.